So we've got a 2001 CR2, so we've got a 2001 CR125 in here today. A guy I know, we went riding, the bike was running good, seemed to lose power, he rode it back to the truck, couldn't start it, seems like it's lost all compression. So like we can kick it over, the bike cycles, but I think this bike's gonna need a piston and rings, or maybe a crank seal on the stator side. So just try and show you guys how easy the bike kicks over. I'll just grab it with my pinky and I can cycle the bike, no problem. There's hardly anything there. And grab a hold of the flywheel at the mag and I can cycle it perfect by hand. You shouldn't be able to do that. You should hit a compression stage where it at least takes some force, but I can pretty much cycle this around with one finger. So that clearly shows we're not getting any compression. This bike's also got electron carb on it. Now I don't know if the carb was set up 100%. They're supposed to be really good. I don't usually work with electrons, but we'll do a video on how they work and what's going on with them. We'll get the pipe pulled off the bike, grab a hold of the springs with our spring puller. I've already got it unbolted, so it's just a matter of pulling the springs off and getting the pipe out of the way. What I'm afraid of, this bike only shows that it has 8 hours on the meter. When they redid the bike, the guy who owned it didn't do the motor, it was already done, or somebody else did it, I'm not 100% sure. But the meter shows it only has 8 hours on it. That's why I'm a little bit like, what happened to the piston? But we're gonna peek in and take a look. So looking in the exhaust port here, we can see the piston and we can kick it. Hang on, let me get a better view. When we cycle it, it goes up and down fine. There is some wear, as you can see on top of the piston. It doesn't look perfectly flat anymore. I imagine it just got hot and did some scoring. Hopefully there's some nicks there. Hopefully, yeah, we didn't hurt the cylinder too bad. What I think might have happened to this bike is the electron wasn't set up properly, and we're going to talk about leaning a bike out. The fuel could be mixed perfect, perfect fuel to oil mixture. But if you're not getting the proper air fuel mixture, you can lean your bike out and cause the bike to damage itself. And I think that's probably what's happened. Stuck a ring. We're going to drop the oil in our 125 here and see if there's any pieces or anything like that in the tranny oil. I don't think there should be or will be. It's separate. I don't know what oil he had in it. We got a little bit of file shavings on the plug. It's normal. Now, one thing that I see right away is there's no copper crush washer on this oil drain, so we'll make sure we get one on there. The oil's super clean. It's almost clear. It's really odd. I don't know what he had in it. We'll have to figure that out. We'll get the gas tank off the bike. We'll pull this electron carb out of the boot. Now we're going to go ahead and drain the rad so we can unhook the hoses so we can get ready to pull this motor out of the bike. So I like to put some cardboard down on the floor, guys, because when you open these, they usually end up wanting to shoot way out here and you think they're going to shoot here. Again, there's no copper washer on this this drain. Those are important, guys. They help create the seal. Now they're easy to overlook and to miss. Oh yeah, we're gonna have a heck of a mess here. There we go. We're not doing too bad. We'll put our bolt back in so we don't lose it, our drain bolt. Get our rear brake out of the way. Oh man, that baby's in there. I don't know if it's just hitting the foot peg funny. I may have to get my actual ratchet. There we go. Get our hoses disconnected from the top of the cylinder head. Loosen off the clamps. We're not taking the rads off, so we don't need to remove all the hoses and everything else. We'll take off the manifold, the exhaust manifold, just to give us that little bit more clearance to get out of the frame. Now, the top head stay bolt, I don't know if you guys can see it. We're gonna try and, I don't know why it has it. Where is it? Right there. Has like a bunch of glue on it. I can't understand why. See that? Spin it. It's got like glue or silicone somebody's gotten all over it. We're gonna have to try and chip some of that off because I can't get the bolt out with it in there like that. Yeah, it's almost like an epoxy or a JB Weld at some point maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to, I put the nut back on and I'm just kind of shearing it off on the block on the cylinder head mount. But there it goes. I'm not sure why that's on there. It just got stuck on there. I don't know what it came from, but it's hard. It's like an epoxy of some sort. So we'll deal with cleaning that bolt up, no problem. We're gonna take the shifter off, get it out of the way, just so we don't run into any problems. We don't want to snag it on anything when it comes to pulling the motor out. It's just easier, takes 2 seconds. Drop it off the bike here. Come on. Now we need to clip all these zip ties so we can get the CDI. Did a nice job trying to route the wires, but it's all got to come off. Pull the motor mounts. Now this shaft's been hammered out pretty good a few times, so we'll see how she comes out. Actually, it's coming out pretty good. Little 125 motor is a lot easier, well, a lot lighter than a 250 motor, if I can get it to cooperate here. There we go. So we just unbolted the cylinder. Let's see what it looks like in here. Or the head, I mean, a little burnt. Cylinder's got a little score on it. I'll try and show you guys. I think we might need a cylinder. So what I don't like is right by the exhaust port there, kind of looks like a crack. I don't know if we can get it to focus properly. But there's definitely a big score right there. There's a divot down at the bottom. I don't know if I can film it. Kind of see it right there. There's a big score. So as you can see, guys, on the piston, the marks do line up. They're in the right spot. Like, I've taken this ring off. But you can see here the ring's actually broken on this 125. So the ring broke, right in half, and it caused the seize, and it seized up and left all the marks on the piston. There's a bunch of chipping up here. So there's no parts in the bottom end, so we're good on that. but definitely this piston's no good. So I was hoping the cylinder would be okay, and it's not. There's a crack right there. Try and get some more light in here so you guys can see. But you can see that crack, and there's like a notch there by the power valve. I'm trying to show it. See if I can show you better. So I've marked it with a Sharpie because this cylinder's no good anyway. But there's a crack. You might be able to get this thing re-nickel sealed, but there's definitely some damage there. So we ended up finding a brand new OEM cylinder, and it was for a pretty good price, cheaper than what we could even get that thing repaired at. So you can see it's brand new, still in the packaging. The cylinder's perfect, obviously. So that's gonna add a lot to this bike. And we actually got brand new OEM everything. We've got the RC, not the RC valve, the power valve cover gasket, the rubber that goes around it. Everything is OEM, OEM Honda parts, everything's OEM. So this bike's gonna go back together, brand new OEM bearing, everything. It's gonna be brand new studs. So we're gonna have basically a brand new 2001 CR125 when we're done. So actually, somebody left a comment just recently about their bottom end. They said, I got the top end off. How do I know if I should do a bottom end? Well, in this case, on this bike, the bike has had no problem shifting. The bearings are good. We can see that. How we see it is we can check the crank itself with up and down play. We want to see if there's any up and down play, and there's none on this crank. Side to side play this way, that's okay, a little bit. There's within tolerance. Now this bike's only been done for 8 hours on the bike. So the crank going this way, that's fine. Up and down play, there's 0 up and down play. So that's perfect too. And basically, if you didn't hear any noise, you didn't have problems shifting, I'm gonna say, like, I know this motor's been done, so it doesn't need to come apart. We don't want to split the cases unless we have to. If you're in our situation and you had to wait for parts to show up, I cover this motor. I don't want anything falling down in there, you know, so the whole motor gets covered, and that way nothing's gonna get inside your motor. Like, you know, I don't know what's gonna get in, but that way nothing can get in. So we're gonna go ahead and pull our power valve and one of our water pump inlets here for the coolant. We need to keep these parts for our new cylinder. Basically, we're gonna get that new cylinder set up so we can start getting this bike back together. We're gonna go ahead and pull off this nut and start taking apart the power valve. Being very careful to note the way it's put together. Just got ourselves a little dish to put the extra parts in. We don't want to lose anything. There's a bunch of shims and little pieces. All right. There we go. You can see the spring here. There's a spring on there. We don't want to lose it. We want to keep everything pretty good. We're going to clean all these parts up and get rid of any grime. No sense having grimy parts going back in our brand new cylinder. Pop that little clip off with our handy dangle screwdriver. Come on, we don't want to lose it. I'll try and zoom in here. So pretty much, I think you just pull this straight out, if I remember. Yeah. So there's our shaft. Got a little bearing on it. Bearing's not bad. No noise, no rough spots. It's probably still good. But we'll go ahead and clean all this up. Take this out of our vise. Being careful, we don't want to break or lose our power valves themselves. They're in there. You gotta kind of hold your tongue right with these. You can see, well, you can't really see because it's too dark, but you can see down in there The power valve in this bike is 2-piece. It has to come out through the back, this one. And then the other one. Just like that. Perfect. Brand new. She's perfect. I don't know if you guys can see all the perfect cross hatching. Everything. She's brand new. No nicks. All the porting smooth around the power valve port. She's perfect. It's not too often you get to do an old bike with a brand new everything. So we're going to go ahead and reinstall the inlet here. We've got some brand new hardware to get rid of this old hardware. Just everything's so new, we might as well. New O-ring in there. There's an O-ring behind this. So we got a brand new O-ring. So we got a brand new crush washer on there. We'll thread that back in and we'll just snug it up. So we've got our brand new Honda piston ring, and we're gonna size it in the cylinder. We're just gonna put it in the cylinder. Nice and level. So what we're doing, guys, is we got our feeler gauge set out, and we need to see what the distance is where the ring comes together. There's an allowable distance, and we need to measure it and then check with the book to make sure that we're within spec. Yeah. 0.018. 0.019 is really scrubs. But that's what they mean by checking the ring gap, is the gap between the ring when it comes together. So we're just letting our ultrasonic cleaner warm up. Now, this cleaner gets up to like 80 degrees. It makes a horrible noise when you use it. I can't really be in the shop. It drives me crazy. But we have ours filled with simple green. It's not hard on the parts. But we're gonna put all our power valve parts in here to hopefully, free up. Obviously not the bearing. The bearing is good. It's a sealed bearing, but we don't want to boil it in the simple green. But the actual power valves themselves, we're gonna put them in and see how they clean up. We got the cylinder head off the bike as well, and it's got some grime on it in the inside here. We're gonna see how this works out. I haven't done a cylinder head in this one before. I have done it before. We're gonna see if it takes off a lot of this carbon buildup. There's nothing wrong with this head. So we'll put it in here and let it soak, let it come up to temperature. Then we'll come back and fire it up, and we'll show you guys how it goes. All right, so we've had our parts in the ultrasonic cleaner for about an hour. We pulled them out, let them cool off a bit. The black is just from the color. That's like residue left on there. We're gonna go ahead and take these inside, give them a rinse and a scrub, and then we're gonna come back out and polish them up. So we've got most of the parts scrubbed up, but we're gonna go over them really quick with the Dremel and a little Scotch-Brite pad to really get all the carbon off and make it brand new. So we're gonna try and, well, we're not gonna try, we're going to reassemble the power valve inside the cylinder. We're gonna make sure we use lots of assembly lube for this. If you don't have assembly lube, you can use normal, just 2-stroke oil like you'd mix in your fuel, the premix oil. We're gonna get in and coat it all over the place, all over the cylinder, up in where the power valve has to seat, where the bearing seats, all over the place. We want to get some down in where the shaft goes. We want to be careful right now not to touch the inside of the cylinder too much with our bare hands. We're going to coat it with the assembly lube and get a nice coating in there because we don't want any fingerprint rust marks or anything like that on our brand new cylinder.
Damn it.
before we install this, we're gonna put our bearing back on. Just making sure to get everything with a little bit of coating on there. This way. Perfect. Slides right on, perfect. I'm looking through where I'm going to put the shaft and seeing where the power valve goes. Extra lube on that connection. Perfect. We'll just get our bearing pressed down in. So we have a 12 mil socket, and it's just going to go on top of that, just right. And we're just going to, we've already put assembly lube down in there to help us press the bearing in. Oh, we'll put our little C-clip back on, our circlip or whatever it is. Has to slide into the little groove. You can see there, just above the bearing. And just crush it on. Come on. There we go. Sets our height right above that bearing. Next piece of the puzzle is this little piece with the spring. It's got a spring built mounted on it. You can pull the spring off. We're not gonna, because I don't want to fight it back on. It slides on pretty much at 12 o'clock. And then this piece here, this piece, I'll show you guys the assembly after, has one long arm. That long arm comes out to the side like this, and then it goes on. And the short arm actually slides in between that piece with the spring. There we go, just like that. So you can see, let me see if I can get it in the light better. Let me do a zoom in. You can see this piece is at 12 o'clock. It's got the short arm and it's in between the spring. Pushes right down. Now there's a washer in the nut. The washer goes on. Went this way last time. We'll put it on that way again. And then the nut. Get rid of these gloves for a second, tighten this up. We'll take a quick peek at the book and see what the torque setting's supposed to be, but the power valve's functioning properly, fully closed, fully open, fully closed, fully open. And we can see that in the cylinder. Right there is fully closed, fully open, fully closed, fully open. Perfect. No resistance, everything's good. So what we have to do now, we're at the stage where we need to make sure that this surface is spotless. We need to get it super clean. Somebody's used gasket maker before, you can see, because the rubber that goes here was damaged. I just bought a new one. They were like $3. So we're gonna use a new rubber, but obviously they didn't think of that, so they used some sort of gasket maker. But we're gonna get that all cleaned up, get this surface cleaned up and true it up with some 1000 grit sandpaper. I usually use 600, but I have a lot of 1000 and it'll do just as good a job. So we're gonna go ahead and clean that up and clean up around the dowels. Make sure we put lots of assembly lube on the dowels, and keep on going. Just gonna pull the rag out. Now, if you have a ruler, I wanna see how square the faces are to each other. And they're bang on. I wasn't worried. It didn't look like there was any issue. But like, what I'm doing basically is like, there's no rock in the ruler on the square. Checking it in various spots. There's no gap. Anywhere I check it, everything's true. So at least this bike's got that going for it. So we're gonna install the wrist pin bearing, and we're gonna completely coat that with assembly lube, just like we did with everything else we're gonna do. So I'm putting a liberal amount on. A little bottle of that assembly lube will last you probably 30 motors. It goes on forever. And I'm just rolling it around in the bearing. I'm gonna put the bearing inside our wrist pin. There's like no play, that's what we want inside of our crank. All right, guys, this is the way the piston has to go in the cylinder. This is the exhaust side, this is the intake side. This one's labeled with an intake. Sometimes they have an arrow, sometimes the arrow's up inside here. You have to really look for it. But what we're looking at is these cutouts are always on the intake side. Let's say you didn't have any marks. These cutouts are in this position for the intake side. Exhaust, in, out. So I don't know how well you guys can see it. My clip is not at 12 o'clock, so I'm gonna rotate that up in line 12 o'clock with the piston. Now back to the bike, get that out of the way. We're going to wrap a rag around everything, because you know what's gonna happen is you're gonna be trying to get that little clip in, it's gonna fall and it's gonna go down in the bottom of the cylinder, or in the bottom of the crank. And you're gonna be swearing, and then now you gotta try and get this out of there, and it's not gonna be fun. And hopefully you don't have to tear the bike apart. So we wrap it in a rag, you know, nice clean rag. Then we can get our stuff all ready to go. All right, guys. So we've put a rag all around the crank because we do not want to lose this clip once we get to that point. Because if we drop it or if it pops off it goes. Again, intake side, exhaust side, the way the piston is, this one's labeled. We're gonna put the bearing up. Sorry, I gotta coat this thing still, assembly lube. All right, all sorts of assembly lube on our wrist pin. Just smeared around real good. Take our piston, slide it over, bearings in there. Now this wrist pin, it's gonna be tight. There we go, it's in. I'm just gonna wipe that off on there because we're gonna need it anyway. We don't care about the excess, no sense cleaning it because we're gonna coat it again. I like to take a little small screwdriver, make sure I'm pushed all the way up against the other clip, and I am. Now the hard part. Well, it's not really that hard, it just has to work out. This little clip, we've got to put it in, and we've got to not drop it anywhere because it'll be impossible to find. It's inevitable that you will drop one day and you will be upset. Help me with it usually. I'm trying to topsoil in. Trying to fill it, place is fine. I think we got it. Yeah, she's bang. Perfect, right in there. So again, our clip's lined up at 12 o'clock and we've got it all together. So our next step is going to be installing the gasket that seats the cylinder to the head. And what I do, just in case stuff happens that you didn't want to happen, and for some reason you had to take the cylinder off, I don't want to buy a new gasket every time, so I take a little bit of grease, just my Maxima, you know, waterproof grease that we use on everything else. And we're just gonna go around and put a very, like you can see how light that is, you know. We're gonna try not to get any down in, but we are gonna dab it around just enough to help hold the gasket down. And if the gasket did have to come off, it would help the gasket come off. We'll take our brand new OEM gasket, this side down. Obviously, it has a little bit of extra stuff to help. We'll press that down on, perfect like that. Perfect, really nice. I'll go ahead and put a little bit more grease around the bolts. Here he is. Like this brush has just got some leftover grease on it from other things. It's a clean brush. I'm not putting junk in the motor. So there's a couple things to note, guys, about the piston rings. Now I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna try and zoom in here or get a better, closer shot. It keeps wanting to focus on my hand. Anyway, right there, there's a letter. There's an N or an R. I think it's an R, an N. But anyway, the letters on your piston ring, they need to go up, facing up. So the piston ring will go on facing this way up. So make note of that, guys, that there's a letter. Also, I'm going to show you on this old piston, there's a notch. Let's look for it. This is the side where it's seized on the exhaust. So on the intake side, we go around. Oh, there's a little notch. You see that? That's where the piston ring, when it goes together, they need to line up in the notch. So just so you guys know, that's how it goes together. So the clip in the notch and the letter on the ring has to be up. Take a little bit of assembly lube. We're gonna put it in the ring groove. We can put assembly lube all over this thing. Doesn't matter, we're gonna do it anyway. So we're gonna take a little bit on our fingers, put it on the ring. Perfect, let her up. So, just in case I didn't mention it, guys, the guide pins are on the back side. This is the clutch side. So they're on the ignition side on this 125, this 01. I think the 2000 is the same. I'm not even 100% sure about the other years. I'd have to look it up. So we want to try and get this. A lot of guys will do this with a couple blocks of wood. I've seen that done. We're just gonna crush the ring. There it goes. And now slip it on. Perfect. So the cylinder bolts, they're only torqued to 20 foot-pounds, guys. So that's not a lot, okay? We've got the torque wrench set right there. 20 foot-pounds. Cross pattern, 20 foot-pounds. It's not a lot of torque. So like if you don't have a torque wrench, you're probably gonna over tighten them. And I have this cool Motion Pro wrench that reaches into this cover, but you have to use it properly. So in order to achieve 20 foot-pounds on this, this torque wrench is rated at the point where it attaches. So in order, there's math, they give you a whole bunch of math, but it's simple. It's 20 foot-pounds to torque this down. So I need to adjust this down here to 16 in order to tighten this for it to be 20 out at the end. And I need to be straight is the key, like that. And when it clicks, it'll be 20. So it's already 20. We got brand new studs for this motor. We're gonna go ahead and thread them in. So we went ahead and wiped down the top of our piston just to make sure there's no dirt or anything like that. The bottom of our head really turned out good after the cleanup. It's all been checked, it's trued, it's good. We're gonna install it. We just need to put the new Honda gasket on. What's really nice about the head gaskets is they clearly say up. So you can't mess that up. But let's say yours didn't say up. If you look at these, you can see there's divots, and these divots are raised right here. Well, the other side, they're indents. So you want them facing up. The divots face up. Cylinder head, everything's perfect. There's no nicks. A couple small little marks in it, but that's to be expected. It's a 21-year-old bike, or older than that, I guess now. So we're gonna finish hooking up the power valve. Basically this arm, it's under spring tension, has to go on that pin. You use a pair of needle nose, grab a hold of it here at the point and push it down until I can get it on. It'll raise the valve back up to its fully closed position. And this little grommet, this is the tricky part, has to go in the hole. So I'm gonna pull the thing down again. It's hard to film it. There we go. The little steel, like grommet has to go in there. And then there's an itty bitty, I don't know if you guys can see it. There's like a little clip, little circlip, or hairpin, I guess. We're gonna push it down into where it needs to be. Perfect. That's it. Just putting some light grease to help me hold the gasket down on here as well. There's a rubber that we bought brand new to put back on there. Again, the black side obviously goes this way. Oh, the last one was cut. I guess I got to take that back off. This gasket goes on, creates a seal. All right. Okay, guys. Well, so you know, there's a gasket's got to go on first. Now our rubber has to go on this way, the small side up. We're just going to put a little bit of grease in here to help create a good seal. Just like that. We'll go ahead and put our cover back on. Has to press down into the new black rubber piece, so be mindful of that. And watch your gasket, make sure your holes all line up. We'll clean off the excess grease. I put grease in everything so that it holds really good. You guys know how I like to do the cardboard cutouts. So I've taken the old bolts out, put new bolts back in so the links are all proper where they need to be. And we're gonna start putting this bike back together.
We move forward like soldiers, you better wake up for the pace stop or you'll pay up. Don't make love to the game, bruh. Fuck the game up. Change up, rearrange stuff to your greatness. Famous for the way up. Play the game, bruh. Never stop, don't get it if I want it.
All right, guys. The 2001 CR125 motor is back together and ready to go back in the bike. We had to end up getting a brand new cylinder. We maybe could have got this cylinder replated. You can get the nickel sill redone. Some shops do it. There's none around. I'd have to ship it to like Quebec. And that's fine. I don't mind doing that. But for the price of this brand new OEM cylinder, straight out of the box, was pretty much the same price as getting it replated. So, you know, you can do what you want. We ended up going this way. The guy wants to keep the bike. It's a great bike. And he loves it. So hopefully he can get a lot more riding out of it with a brand new motor. Anyway, guys, like and subscribe on the videos. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if you guys think this could be replated. You know, anything else that you guys seen while I was putting the motor back together, if there's an easier way or you know of something else, you know, don't be afraid to leave a comment. I like talking about bikes. Or if you got any questions on something I didn't cover or what I would do, don't be afraid to leave that down below too. Anyway, I guess we're all done, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Well, guys, it's time to get our motor back in our 01 CR125. So before we actually get the motor in, you can see that the inside of his frame rail here has got some good gouges in it from the bolt, somebody tightening it up and it catching and not being fully seated. So we're gonna go ahead and buff that out for him. We don't want to, you know, he spent a lot of time and effort on this bike, and how often do you pull that pin? So we're gonna take care of that right now. All right, so what I like to do whenever I find little like blemishes, let's call them like that, is I just got a cheap die grinder. Now I don't go buy a Dremel, or sorry, not a die grinder, a Dremel, but I don't go buy a Dremel because they're too much money. I buy cheap ones that are guaranteed because I blow them up. So anyway, we're gonna take the Dremel tool with a sanding wheel and just blend that in. And then we'll go over with a Scotch-Brite buffer pad and just buff the area up. Perfect. Take our motor off the stand. Hopefully she falls right in. Never works out like that though. We're gonna make sure we get enough grease on this the swing arm pivot bolt here. We're just using our waterproof grease, Maximus. I think this one is pretty good stuff. I like it. I've used the Bel Ray stuff in the past. It's good too. But a good quality grease. You don't want to slack out on that. We'll just really grease it up. We've re-greased the bearings while we had it apart in the swing arm. If you guys want to see that, you'll have to watch the swing arm video. So rather than fight it and have to fight the bolt in, I'll use a drift pin on this side to kind of get everything half lined up, lift the motor up a bit so I can get the pivot bolt back in. Now we're not hitting the pin, we're just using it as a guide. Any kind of dowel or piece of metal will help you out there. So that'll hold that, and we'll put the pin in. Now we're into the punch, I think. Take the punch out. To help us out, we're actually gonna put the front motor mount bolt in, because it's pretty close. If we can get it. Because our motor keeps dropping back. Same, we put a little bit of grease on the front bolt. Take our channel locks, sort of align this where it needs to be. Just turn it. There. We're gonna use the back of the punch. Do not put a punch in that hole, guys. Use the back of a punch to help drive it in. We're not hitting it very hard, just light. There we go. We'll go ahead and throw our other motor mount bolt in with a little bit of grease on as well. We'll get our head stay bolted back up before we start tightening anything down. We can get that master cylinder back in as well. The reservoir for it. Now it's just a matter of putting all the nuts on and torquing them to the proper settings. We're gonna put a brand new plug in this bike. Last thing you want is for you to be messing around and your brand new rebuild doesn't work because you're trying to run an old plug. The plug might have worked fine, but I just run normal NGK plugs like everybody else. I don't use the iridium ones. I don't know if they're worth the money. You know, brand new plug is a good investment, good brand new plug. Just snug it down. Get our boot on right away so we don't forget. Get our hoses on while we're here. So cable management is a pretty important thing, and the clutch cable comes down through the head stay on a nice straight line down here to where it needs to hook up into the clutch. Get this back in the clutch here. Just like that. Loop our chain over. Put the master back on. We got our special Tusk Master Link pliers. They're actually pretty handy. I bought them not long ago, never used them before, but they do work pretty good. We just simply put our clip on. All right, time to put our carburetor back on the bike. Now it's time to try and feed this sucker in there. It is a tight fit. The Electron's a big carburetor, guys. It has a pretty girthy size to it. Ain't gonna fit like that. How did I get it out of here? Well, maybe I should have. Well, we finally got the Electron in there. It wasn't easy, and it's still not easy. There's not a lot of room for this thing. It's a pretty big carb. It just has big and odd places. It really barely clears the shock. Just pushing that in there to get it to seat properly. I could see guys having problems with that. There it's going. Don't fall off the bike. There we go. There we go. So we're gonna run or mount the exhaust flange. There's a gasket. We got a brand new one, Honda OEM, like everything else. It's got to go on, you know. And pay attention on this 01. It's not a circle, it's an oval. So if you're putting them on, guys, don't just jam them on. Pay attention which way they go. It's an easy one to miss. We went ahead and cleaned that exhaust flange up really good, getting all the crud off. Because we're going to put a brand new O-ring on it. So I think I've mentioned before on some of the other bikes, the O-rings aren't just your normal O-ring. You can see they have a crest to them. So make sure you spend the $5, $10, I don't know what it cost me, but buy the right O-ring for the bike. That way you're not covering it in silicone, stuff like that, and potentially getting something down in your motor. Just slide it on there. Perfect. So I mentioned in my other video when I took the oil drain plug out, it didn't have a crush washer. So make sure you guys have crush washers on your bike. Replace them when you're going to rebuild the bike. It just gives that extra seal. So we're going to go ahead and fill the bike with 1040. This Motul stuff's what I use. Seems to be pretty good. If you guys have something better that you guys like to use, leave a comment, let me know. So we're going to fill it until it starts coming out of the weep. I think it's about 700 on a 125, maybe 850, 750, something like that. There we go. Get our coolant system filled up. Run some of this engine ice in this bike. I run it in my 250, 01 250, the one I ride a lot. Nobody's saying you have to, just depends on your conditions and how you ride it. So as I'm filling the lines, guys, I just start giving them squeezes, working the air out of them. That way, you know, you can try to push the bubbles through. You can watch your coolant gurgle in there if you've got enough, and then just top it up, go around, squeeze the lines, try and get most of the air out. If you squeeze the line and nothing happens, it doesn't have anything in it. Because when you squeeze it, it should push the fluid up. Get our rear brake reinstalled. If you guys watch my other videos, you know I'm a big supporter of greasing this stuff when you put it back together. Keep it lasting and not ovaling out. A lot of these parts are aluminum, and they will, if they don't have the grease and the lubricant that they need, they will turn into an oval over time. Just put a bunch of grease on there, tighten her down. Any excess grease, wipe it up. It's that simple. Mount the kickstart. Just hand tight for now. We may have to adjust for the exhaust, but we're going to try and mount it as high as we can. Get our subframe mounted back on. There we go. Finally. Man, that Electron is just so big. That's what she said. We're not going to tighten up the bolts just yet until we get the silencer on. Get our springs mounted. So the 2001 CR125 is all back together, brand new motor. The compression is ridiculously different than what it was, obviously. I can't, oh, it hurts my pinky to actually do it. But you could. But all that's left now is get some fuel in it, and we need to do 3 heat cycles. We want to seat those rings. Now we don't want to scream it. We just want to warm it up, let it run, let it cool off, do it again, let it cool off, do it again. And we don't want to idle it because being a 2-stroke, you don't really want to idle, but you don't want to warm it up like you're going riding. Roll. She's not getting enough fuel. Well, the 2001 CR125 fires up just fine. As you guys can see, we did a heat cycle on it. I'm gonna end the video here, but I'm gonna do a couple more heat cycles just to make sure that everything's up and running, no problem. I was having a bit of problems with the electron on the choke. I couldn't reach it. I couldn't get it. I thought I had it up, but I guess I didn't. Once I did finally get it clicked up, you guys saw the bike fired right up. So it's just more of a user error, I guess. It's in a weird spot. The choke's on the far side. Anyway, guys, if you like the video, like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll see you guys in the next one.